Anybody with the experience of stock market knows that it is an extremely stressful environment. In our last episode, we have seen Gauguin's potential to be a great artist. He must have felt it too. However, in the pressure cooker of the stock market, he had little energy left for painting. It must have been frustrating to him. Therefore, after the crash of the stock market in 1882, he obviously did some soul-searching. What was he going to do with his art talent? His lavish childhood has given him one important lesson. He knew what extreme wealth was like. He understood that money could buy things, but do little to improve one's happiness. So he had no illusion of making himself happier by making more money from the stock market. The other thing that we know is that his wife Mette did not support his decision to pursue art. So Gauguin was determined enough to pursue art even at the cost of enraging her. Did Mette, who had no experience of opulent life, want to find salvation in having Gauguin making more money? After Gauguin decided to pursue art, Mette left him in Paris and went back to Copenhagen with the children. Gauguin's first reaction was to try to repair the relationship. He went to Copenhagen in 1884, trying to make it there by becoming a salesman in a place where he did not even speak the language. Obviously, that was at Mette's suggestion, as Gauguin was clearly sensible enough to know that it was a stupid idea in every way. Also clear was a decision for him to leave Copenhagen for Paris after he failed as a salesman. Mette probably wanted to see whether Gauguin could make it again financially in Paris. She only decided to break up the relationship 9 years later, when it was clear to her that Gauguin was not moving in the right direction. Today we see a lot of Gauguin's early paintings in Denmark, because he did not take them to Paris. Although Gauguin wanted to work out the relationship, it is hard for us not to imagine that he felt a certain degree of liberation from this strong-willed woman who stupidly forced completely unfitting ideas onto him. Bad match makes two victims. With that confused mindset, Gauguin returned to Paris, finding little market for his paintings. It was 1885. He was 37 years old. In 1886, to save money and get some fresh air, he went to the cheap seaside artist colony Pont-Aven in Brittany. Because of his age, he became the de facto leader of the young artists there. There, Gauguin could be free, both in his appearance and his art. It was the environment that he needed to develop his own style. More than anything at this time, he needed a direction. Judging from his paintings at that time, he did not quite have one. He copied Cézanne in this one. This was his effort to flatten the landscapes. He was trying to flatten the figures here. I probably shouldn't have put this one up. So after Pont-Aven, we cannot quite see where he was going with his paintings. Desperate for some inspiration, he decided to take a trip in the following year, 1887. His destination was Panama. The plan was to take advantage of the business interests of his sister's husband there to get a job in banking. After setting up, he planned to get his wife there from Copenhagen. To make a long story short, the plan didn't work out. On top of that, he quickly got into trouble with the law. So he took advantage of a French policy that paid for the repatriation of destitute French citizens in a colony. But when the ship passed Martinique, he got off. We're not sure why, but he stayed from June to November there, near Saint-Pierre. This is obviously an improvement from Pont-Aven. Today we call these islands paradises. I bet these brightly colored, outlandish, and exotic paintings are the origins of that conceptualization. This was the beginning of his style, now called Symbolism. We notice that the distortions put the outlandishness in these paintings more than things like bright colors. Certainly the flatness was from Japanese wood prints, and these parallel brushstrokes were from Pissarro. But it is undeniable that the distortion was more than the Japanese ukiyo-e, and the impressionist techniques were used for different purposes. The overall experience was something entirely new. We see that his symbolism, which was also known as Cloisonnism, synthetism, primitivism, Japanism, post-impressionism, and of course, modernism, has taken its form in Martinique. This style was called modernism because Gauguin has gone beyond painting ephemeral light effects or fundamental structures. Cézanne said that everything in nature may be resolved into the sphere, the cone, and the cylinder. Gauguin's response to that was basically that life was not only simplification. The interesting world was beyond those spheres, cones, and cylinders. Definitely influenced by Impressionists and Structuralists, Gauguin explored ways to use language to produce the impressions or expressions of the idyllic paradise that was being lost by the spread of industrialization. It is for that reason some people call Gauguin the first modernist painter. Back in France, Gauguin returned to Pont-Aven in the summer of 1888 to further develop his symbolist style. This time, he was joined by young painters including Émile Bernard, 20 years old, Paul Cérizet, 24, Edouard Vuillard, 20, and Maurice Denis, only 18. Surrounded by these later famous artists, Gauguin tried to get a firm hold on that form he developed in Martinique with the help of all current expressive tools, including the inventions by both the Impressionists and the Structuralists, as well as the image distortion of the primitive art and flattening by the Japanese. One of the products of this effort was the now famous Vision After the Sermon. Gauguin called this synthesism, so to him, this was an effort of combining. Here, much of the landscape was represented by solid red, complementing every cool color in the foreground, making the image disturbing. But that was the old Impressionist trick we covered in episode 10 of season 1. Even Hokusai or Hiroshige, whom we covered in episode 4 of season 1, did not go that flat with their landscapes. Gauguin used heavy contour lines to make the painting more distant from the viewers. It was similar to what Manet did in his infamous Olympia that we've discussed in episode 12. Gauguin was going after the same effect. For us, trying to understand the development of Gauguin styles, the exact subject matter, the Breton woman, or the wrestling of angels with Jacob, does not really matter that much. The additional sensations, be it outlandish primitive feelings or the sense of paradise, were what he was after. Finally, let me just point out these two characters. At the solemn moment of witnessing Jacob wrestling with the angel, what were they doing? They were certainly not looking at the wrestling. We may call this Gauguin's human touch to this biblical moment. No matter what happens in the grand scale of history, people are simply people. The bluish forehead and nose added red to the cheek, making the blushing more obvious. think about this human touch for a while. I'll see you next time.